Next slide. Go to next slide. Good afternoon, ma'am. Presenting from Medicine One. My in charge is Dr. Amit. Presenting 52-year-old Mr. Gentleman from Kerala, who had presented us with complaints of shortness of breath for 3 months, fever for 3 months, loss of weight and loss of appetite for 3 months. He had said that the breathlessness used to improve when he lies down in the left lateral position. He is a non-case of PLHIV from 1999. The probable cause was IV drug abuse. Unfortunately, in 2009, he was found to have HIV primary drug resistance and he was on second line ATT. However, he was not taking his therapy properly. He had, for this fever and loss of weight, he had been empirically treated with ATT for 2 months, and unfortunately, there was no improvement with that. On clinical examination, his blood pressure was 130 by 70, pulse rate was 84, respiratory was 26. There was one single node in the left posterior triangle, 0.5 into 0.5 centimeter. Other than that, his clinical examination main finding was in the left side, there was a mild to moderate pleural effusion, which was initially there was no mediastinal shift, but while he was in the hospital, we found that effusion was becoming bigger and there was a mediastinal side to the right side. At that time, our diagnosis was a left side pleural effusion with an HIV on second line ART, which was not compliant to medications. At this point, our differentials was primarily either an infection or a malignancy associated with HIV. We thought it was a Mycobacterium tuberculosis or a MAC infection. The other differentials when HIV with the pleural effusion is nocardia, histoplasma, toxoplasma, or cryptococcus, which are rare. Malignancy wise, we thought it is a primary effusion lymphoma or a non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, maybe a DLBCL. The other possibilities are Kaposi lymphoma, multicentric Castleman's like we discussed last week, and plasmablastic lymphoma. Initial workup, hemoglobin was 8.6, which was anemia of chronic disease. LFT was normal. Creatinine was elevated, but we thought the differentials may be a CKD secondary to either tenofovir, which he was on, or because of HIVAN. We had initially went for the pleural fluid aspiration. It was an exudate. Unfortunately, the expert as well as the pleural biopsy was negative. We had also done a bone marrow, which was also negative. The CD4 count that was sent, it was showing 116. So at this point, we were thinking, is it an infection or we are not sure. So we went again and did a CT abdomen thorax, which showed actually an adrenal mass around 6 into 4 centimeter. We also did a repeat aspiration and sent for cytology, which came as plasmablastic lymphoma. Same time, we had also done a biopsy because the pleural fluid had not come at that time. That also was suggestive of a plasmablastic lymphoma. So at this point, our final diagnosis for this gentleman was a high-grade non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, plasmablastic lymphoma, HIV on second-line ART, CD4 of 116, chronic kidney disease probably secondary to interstitial nephritis or probable HIV nephropathy. The another anemia was chromoid disease. So at this point, I just want to discuss about HIV-associated lymphomas. We know that Kaposi sarcoma, invasive cervical carcinoma, and certain non-Hodgkin's lymphomas are the primary HIV-associated lymphomas. Here, I just want to discuss about the lymphomas. So usually 80 to 85% are systemic non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. 1% is primary effusion, 15% is primary CNS lymphoma. I want to discuss about Burkitt's, plasmablastic, and primary effusion lymphoma for these patients. You will see, as you can see here, as commonly, DLBCL is the most common, around 75%, followed by Burkitt's lymphoma, and rarely plasmablastic lymphoma. So plasmablastic lymphoma essentially is an aggressive B cell malignancy. The cell of origin is a plasmablast. That means the B cells has undergone differentiation, somatic hypermutation and class switching so that it is targeted to a specific antigen. And usually since there is a plasmamari differentiation that's already happened, they are negative for the B cell markers, but will be positive for CD38, CD130 and MUM1. That is what we saw in our patient also. Typically, plasmablastic lymphoma is associated with the Epstein-Barr virus positivity, and it can happen in both HIV positive as well as negative patients. Usually HIV positive or patients who have undergone bone marrow transplant for some other reason or any other transplant. This is the typical appearance where large cells with large ovoid nucleus with cytoplasm, no specific feature as such, they are large nucleuses. Typically, they appear either in the oral cavity, GI system, lymph nodes, or skin. In oral cavity, usually they present as large nodules, asymptomatic nodules, either in the gingiva or the palate. Usually, they do not cause any symptoms until it progresses. In the GI system, it usually presents either in the stomach or in the large or small intestine. Multiple case reports I saw, most of them they present either as an obstruction or a abdominal pain. Adrenal mass as such as a presentation is a very rare thing. Lymph nodes are seen around 43% of the patients, and skin nodules are also seen. Usually they are seen in males, median age is around 50. Advanced person, usually the problem is that many patients present with the bone marrow involvement up to 40%, and lymph node is around only in around 30% of the patients. Unfortunately, disease is very aggressive, only 6 to 19 months of survival. Usually the treatment we give is hyper-CVAD or EPOC. But problem is that even with the therapy that we usually give at this point, we still have only a event-free survival, overall survival of only around 32 months. The other disease we have thought about was a primary effusion lymphoma. This is also a rare disease, around 1 to 4% of cases. As you assume effusion, so there are two presentations possible. Classical presentation is in the form of involvement of serosal surface. So basically in this patient, they will present based on where it is affected. So suppose the patient has a pleural involvement, they will have a pleural effusion. So will present with breathing difficulty. Suppose they have a pericardial involvement, they may present with a pericardial tamponade. Sometimes they present joint spaces involvement. So they might present in joint pain. Sometimes they have meningeal involvement also. Usually the one important thing we have seen is that the patients have a strong HHV8 positivity. Like we remember last time we had talked about Castleman's disease. HHV8 is another major disease associated with the primary effusion lymphoma. There are some cases where there is no effusion also. Extracavitary primary effusion lymphoma, where it is based on the fact that the tumor cells and the markers suggestive of primary effusion lymphoma, but at the same time patient doesn't have any effusion as such. They only have solid tumors, usually in the abdomen. Usually the problem with this disease is it doesn't really spread everywhere, but where it involves usually is the cardinal organs like lung, heart, etc. And it's a locally invasive disease. So they usually have CD45 positive, and usually they are negative for B cell. And other thing is that in spite of chemotherapy that we use, usually these patients have underlying HIV. So they firstly treat with ART properly and with CHOP regimen. Unfortunately, even with all this, the average survival for primary effusion lymphoma is only 6 to 12 months. The other thing is about Burkitt's lymphoma. It's a highly aggressive B-cell non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, which we know about. We know as usual that it has only three types. It has three types: it's endemic, sporadic, and immunodeficiency associated. Endemic is the African type, which in India there is some sort of an intermediate type where there is features suggestive of both the endemic and sporadic. Endemic usually presents as a jaw tumor. The most classical association with Epstein-Barr virus. Epstein-Barr virus is usually positive in all endemic tumors, or at least 80% of them. And the sporadic and immunodeficiency usually have around 30% positive for Epstein-Barr virus. The characteristic mutation is a mutation that allows the expression of the proto-oncogene MYC. So there is a mutation allowing the activation of MYC proto-antigen in the chromosome 8. Endemic usually presents a jaw or a facial tumor, 50 to 60%. They can spread to mesentery, ovary, testis, kidney, breast, or meninges. Bone marrow involvement is only seen around 10% of the patients. Non-endemic is usually more common in US and all. And in India also, most of the cases are non-endemic. They usually present with abdominal presentation. The typical presentation either as an abdominal pain causing an obstruction or an intra-abdominal bleeding. This we have seen multiple times in India. There are case reports also of the jaw tumors like we see in Africa and India also. Lymphadenopathy is generally localized. Bone marrow and CNS involvement occurs in approximately 30%. Immunodeficiency associated in HIV usually has only lymph node involvement, bone marrow, or CNS involvement. This is an example of a jaw tumor, and the second one is when the mass is there in the stomach, an ulcerative lesion that is causing obstruction in this patient. The typical expression is a starry sky pattern in histology. What do you mean by starry sky? The star here is the macrophages. This Burkitt's lymphoma is a highly active tumor, very high turnover, and the cells undergo apoptosis. The macrophages take it in, and these macrophages do not stain. So they look like stars in a background of pink cells. That is a star in the histology. So it looks like a moth-eaten appearance, and immunophenotype, they are positive for B cell as well as for the immunoglobulin. Kappa is more than gamma. They are usually positive for Epstein-Barr virus, in which case it is positive for CD21. And when you do flow cytometry, you see the translocation 814 or 28. treatment is called usually we use a short course chemotherapy, but he is this one disease in which the survival has improved from less than 12 months to more than 3 to 4 years for the patients. In our patient, the patient went a tumor lysis syndrome. Unfortunately, we had to put in a chest tube in view of worsening breathing difficulty. Family elected for palliative chemo. Unfortunately, he passed away within 1 week of going home. So learning points here is HIV-related lymphomas and presentation of plasmablastic lymphoma. Thank you.
Thanks, Arun. Does anybody have any questions or comments for Arun? Amit, do you have anything to add on to what Arun has presented? Arun has done a very good presentation. So anything else to add on? I think one thing rightfully is always differentials will be of an infection first, which Arun rightfully pointed out.
Yes, sir.
And that the imaging is what brought out the diagnosis. No, otherwise,
No,
I
ma'am.
don't think we
Otherwise,
got
we were
it.
not.
No other tissue had sorted out. So,
Yes, ma'am.
having said that, in all of other than the primary effusion lymphomas, any of the others, what's the chance of them presenting like an effusion? The other
Ma'am, I'll show in that picture, ma'am. 1 minute.
with your
Yeah.
differentials.
Uh, yeah. Basically, when I look through, there is a good data on up to date about this. So,
Sure.
Mycobacterium tuberculosis, as we know, can present as a primary, just a pleural involvement alone. MAC infection around 30% is what is written. Nocardia, histoplasma, toxoplasma cryptosis are very rare presentations, ma'am.
That's
There
right.
is also one thing written about pneumocystis jirovecii also can present, but that is also a rare presentation. In malignancy, primary effusion, but the problem is primary effusion lymphoma as such is a
Which is
very
very
rare
rare.
diagnosis. Non-Hodgkin's lymphoma can present with effusion, but usually they have other lymph nodes and all involved. Kaposi lymphoma, what is described is that usually they have the typical Kaposi type tumors in the skin at least 6 to 8 months prior to the presentation of the pleural effusion.
Right.
And multicentric Castleman disease, as we remember last time, usually it doesn't need to be. It can be the first presentation also. Like it can be just a generalized lymphadenopathy with a generalized effusion either in abdomen, ascites, or a pleural effusion.
Sure.
A plasmablastic lymphoma, as such, the most common presentation is primarily either a tumor or like effusion is not the usual common presentation, ma'am. And adrenal mass is a very rare presentation for this. Usually abdominal masses and all is more common, ma'am.
Sure. Thank you, Arun, for that clarification. Just so that initial clinical differentials would have been almost in the order that Arun said so. We would keep lymphomas at the back of our minds, but infection, particularly TB, would have been the first differentials. Just show me your investigations once, Arun, just the blood.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
So here everything was fairly benign, looking short of the anemia.
Yes, ma'am.
Platelets a little borderline, and of course the kidney disease, which may not have been related to this particular infection. Yeah.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Actually, we had tried repeatedly to get the diagnosis without doing a invasive test. Like a biopsy was the last in our mind, but
Yeah.
multiple cytologies were not positive.
Not positive.
But the initially it was a serous fluid, ma'am. By the time patient went, the tabs were all hemorrhagic,
Okay.
significantly very poor disease,
It
very
rapidly increased. Yeah.
rapidly worsened, ma'am. By the time he reached home, apparently within 2 days he passed away, ma'am.
Yeah, I suppose having the diagnosis helped, but unfortunately the disease was virulent.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you so much, Arun. Anybody has any other comments? Yes, please go ahead. Somebody's put up their hand.
Ma'am, am I audible?
Yeah, you're audible. Audible.
Yeah, this is Amit here, ma'am.
Yeah, hi Amit. Go on.
So for this patient, there's a significant backstory. He had come to us about 2 months ago with the same clinical syndrome. At which point of time we had extensively evaluated, and just like we discussed, TB was first among the
Yeah.
differences that we had. We could not find establishing histopathological or microbiological diagnosis, but he had significant exudative pleural effusion with leukocytosis. So we sent him on empirical ATT. And it was a local physician who was following him up actually realized that he's not getting better and referred him back to us.
Sure.
So often in medicine, we start people on empirical therapy, but I think when we start them on empirical therapy for chronic diseases, it's always important to follow up or have systems in place where they can get back to us.
Sure.
Yeah, ma'am, because the 2 months they have given that ATT, he didn't make it. Actually, one more thing interesting to say is actually this patient after starting the ATT showed some improvement. So, and we started ART also around the same time. So we are confused whether the improvement that initially he showed was because of the ART and not because of the ATT. We had a doubt about that also. But within 1 month down the line, he started worsening again. That's when he came back to us, ma'am.
The fusion did it, I mean, even show any kind of change? That might have been the
It,
same, no?
no,
Overall.
ma'am. It had slightly improved.
Okay.
That's why we were very confused initially. There was some improvement in the effusion also, but within some time it just massively worsened. And then by the time he came second time, he had really worsened, ma'am. It was like significant effusion.
I can understand Arun and Amit's angst over this, and I'm sure it was a difficult thing to go through with the patient.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
So thank you so much, Arun, and
Thank you.
thanks, Amit. Anybody else has any other comments? If not, thank you, Arun. Just to tell all the PGs, there'll be a quiz at the end of the clinical meeting for the PGs. Please remember to stay logged on for that. And of course, individual PGs will get your feedback. We'll go down.